Brilliant stuff. Thank you. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us this morning.
Great, brilliant. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I'm delighted to have been asked to come and present to you yourselves on behalf of Cube Thinking. So just next slide, John. Just next slide, John.
Yeah.
So just myself, I've worked in the communications sector for just over 11 years now, predominantly Northwest based. Got a variety of clients up and down the country, lots of vertical sectors, and from a security perspective, I'm myself from GCHQ trained along with the usual Cyber Essentials Plus, ISO 9001. So on today's presentation, we're going to talk about communications as a topic, the way that we all used to work, the way that we work and we are now. And the key bit from today, which I think you're going to find super useful and that I want you to take away with you, is some of the things that potentially your current telecom suppliers maybe don't want you to know that you are entitled to throughout this period that can really, really help. The remote working tools that are currently available in the marketplace that you may already be using, but there may be some that you're not, and on that could be just a great awareness piece for you. How could you be working? And at the very end, we've got a number of things that we can offer you guys to take away, along with any questions and answers that you submit. So you'll see the familiar environments like this. Offices that are busy, crammed, people working side by side. We've got on-site systems, we've got local files records. Our desks were, populated with keyboards, PCs, mouse. We've got colleagues that are nearby for support. We've got immediate telecom support as well. And now, is this what working from home looks like for us? Do we have these peaceful, calm spaces, organised, clean desks, flowers, lots of space, beautifully laid out work items and tools? Or is it more like this? Fighting for space, kids, pets, mess. I think we can all familiarise with some of these images and scenarios at home. But regardless, we know that certain things haven't changed. So we've still got our deadlines. We still want to start working once we've had our first coffee, and we've still got to deal with issues and faults and all that kind of stuff over the phone. So I suppose a question really is, have you or your firm or your company had to spend more money to facilitate working from home? Have you had to upgrade your telephone system? Have you had to buy more mobile phones? Have you had to spend money on collaboration or conferencing software? That could be on a free trial. It could be something that you're going to start paying for further down the line. Have you had to add more licenses or applications? And I suppose what your current comm suppliers maybe don't want you to know is there are ways in which you can immediately reduce your spend and your bills with them in a variety of ways. What's possible, which services and products can we do that across, and what sort of savings potentially are we looking at, and we're going to cover that off shortly. So number one, the quickest and easiest thing that you can do is, we all know that we can furlough staff. We've got staff on furlough. We can furlough mobile phone devices as well. So the networks have slightly different ways of doing this, but essentially you can retain a mobile phone device, its number, keep it live for a period of time, and just quite simply stop paying for that device for a short period. So even if we look at an example of 25 devices at £40 each per month, you can quite easily get into four-figure saving sums. And this is something that is available from the networks. You can speak to your provider and ask how you can facilitate this, how it can happen, and they should be able to assist with that. If you're unsure, a common theme throughout this is going to be, to use Matrix as a sounding board, and we can offer advice to anyone and everyone about what is available, what we know to be the case. It will be slightly different from network to network, but essentially, please feel free to ask us at any point. So data connectivity, broadband, we all have connectivity in our offices. What the internet service providers have allowed for throughout this period is a freeze on payments. So a freeze on payments will allow you to continue using your broadband or your data connectivity, but it's an assist with your cash flow. And the way in which they'll do that is they will either extend your contract to cover that frozen revenue, or they'll increase the payments when you do start to pay back again. But essentially, it's help for the here and now. So broadband connectivity can range from £50 to £500 per month. So we can quite easily see the savings. But again, it's another instant, quick win and quick save for you. Again, the caveat being each of the internet service providers will have their own unique ways of doing it, but there is that assistance there to help. So telephone lines. So within your office environment, within your place of work, you may have different types of telephone lines. But if we start with the traditional based digital or analog phone lines connected to your phone system, we know that network is being switched off by early 2025. So all UK businesses must have already upgraded to SIP or VoIP, IP or cloud. Now, regardless of the current situation, it's actually a perfect time to do this. So please speak to your current providers about what your options are to upgrade. So just as an example, upgrading to, sorry, Jason.
So we've got a few clients that got some ancient ways of working, is probably a kind way to say it,
Yep.
in some places. That's just because often a geographical issue or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How easy is it for them to upgrade then the phone line? Because this is quite interesting. I can think of our particular clients and what we've done with leased lines and the like with them.
So it's really easy to do it, especially at the moment, because we're finding that workplaces are working on minimum staff in the workplace. You can upgrade an on-premise traditional phone system to something cloud-based or VoIP-based with next to no disruption, no downtime. It's installed and set up alongside what you've currently got, and then we simply switch off the old service. So it's a really, really smooth transition. Training on the new setup, the new telephone system can be done remotely, and it can be done in groups with groups of people. And one of the things I was going to mention is, I know certainly the upgrades that we've been busy doing ourselves, there's no capital outlay whatsoever. And what you can also find is that you'll actually generate savings for yourselves, because the rental of new upgraded phone systems are lower in cost. You get free calls, and there's better fraud protection available. Now, just to give you an idea, very recently, last week, we upgraded a small office in Manchester with 10 users. And we managed to justify instant savings of about £3,500 per year by doing so. No capital outlay. Now, it's going to vary from customer to customer, but you can see that those larger savings are there for even as few as 10 users.
Thank you. Cheers.
Now, if that's not an option for you for whatever reason, again, ISDN lines, we can temporarily be frozen, or you can. There are small savings to be made on them, because what Openreach cannot do is they can't close the lines down and reopen them. They can only put a payment freeze on, and you would roughly save between £10 and £20 per line per month. But on this, I would strongly encourage, if you've not done already, to look into upgrading.
Thanks. Cheers.
And if you have already upgraded to something like SIP or VoIP or cloud, there's a few different things that you can do. So depending on how many telephone lines or SIP lines you've got in place at your place of work, you can check. There's actually software available at network level to see how many of those lines are now actually in use. So if you've got 10 or 20 lines, but we're only using 25%, at network level, we can switch those lines off temporarily, reduce you down to what you're currently using, and then they can simply be reactivated, and that can all be done within a day. So we're not restricted to ISDN lines where we're having to wait 4 weeks for Openreach to make the change. It can be done instantaneously.
John,
and again,
yeah, Victor, just a quick one on that. There's probably quite a lot of people out there now thinking, well, I'd like to have someone to look at me phone line to see if I can switch some of these off. But could you work on other people's phone lines even if and do the analysis even if you're not managing them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can do that investigative work for you. We can speak with your current providers on your behalf. We can take a look at what you've currently got and make some recommendations that you can go back to your current provider with. And myself and a team at Matrix would be more than happy to assist with that. So if after this anybody is interested in anything that we've gone through on here, we've got my contact details on, and I'd be more than happy to discuss any of this with you. But it is something we can do that.
So, Victor, we've just had a question from Bev. Bev, give us. So, question from Bev.
Yep.
What we've got here then is: I'm using my work VoIP line for business in my home office. Is it worth using this system for home too? So, I'm using my work VoIP line for business in my home office. Is it worth using this system for home too?
So, if I think I understand the question right, I think I think is the question, looking at installing a VoIP line into your home address. And yeah, absolutely, we do that quite often. And I kind of so I have a BT for home. So we can actually install business grade VoIP or fiber or broadband connections into residential addresses. So I'm working from home myself, but I've got a business grade fiber product here. The reason being is I get a much better SLA if there is an issue. And I also, it's a lower contended speed. So what that means is if I have a residential broadband, the contention on that broadband is much higher. There's more people using the infrastructure in my area, whereas on a business grade, it's much lower.
Bev's added on there. Mine is a business grade VoIP.
Okay, I'm not too sure I understand the question. If I'm going to be honest, I do apologise.
Okay, well, I mean, we can go deeper offline as well.
Okay,
great. With regards to the technicalities of that. Julie, did you put your hand up, or were you having a brew?
Neither. I was just talking to Sonia.
All right, no worries. Hiya, Sonia. All right, cheers.
So again then, but with regards to SIP or VoIP lines, we've got the ability to provide a loan of line utilization software to help you understand how many lines that you are currently using. And again, small savings can be made roughly between £10 and £20 per month, per line per month.
That's great.
Next slide, John. So telephone systems. So in terms of the actual physical phone system that you might have in your workplace, you could well be paying a user or license fee for all users and phones connected to the phone system. If you are paying on a payment method that's like this, those licenses can be furloughed or frozen if they are being or were being used for staff that are also now furloughed. So with licenses and software just being in their very nature, licenses and software, they can simply be switched back on once your staff do return to work. License fees vary from phone system to phone system, but you could be looking at anywhere from £15 to £50 per month. So again, you can, dependent on how many staff are furloughed, there's instant savings that can be made, and this isn't a long lead time to do it. It can just be done instantly. Support or maintenance contracts. So you may be an organisation that pays a monthly or a quarterly or an annual fee for support for your telephone system, and typically this will cover replacement parts, software updates and call outs. Now the way support contracts are generally put together is the value is based on the RRP of equipment or hardware that you've got on site. Now, most phone systems now carry all the intelligence in the actual main box or main processor itself, and the handsets simply just pull their settings down from the box. And I suppose what I'm getting to now is what our recommendation would be is that you approach your providers and ask them to take the handsets off the support contract. And the reason for that is if you've had a phone system in place for a number of years now, the likelihood that your handset will develop a fault that's not down to somebody spilling a cup of coffee on it is extremely minimal. So you're paying for support across items that really potentially wouldn't fail due to a technical fault, because all they're doing is pulling settings down from the phone system. So what we do with our clients a lot, especially new clients now, is we just don't include handsets on support. And so by doing that, you could potentially halve the value of your support cost. But again, it's important to understand the phone system that you've got in place and how those handsets work, but there's potential there certainly to reduce that support cost by 50%. So just moving on to what sort of home working and remote working tools that you may or may not have access to. We're just going to cover off what kind of technology is available, how it can benefit you and your business, and importantly, I think a lot of people have rushed to get things deployed and get up and working, which we've all been in the same boat, but it's really, really important to understand how security works by doing so. So we'll cover that off as well. So number one, telephony. How do I replicate being sat at my place of work? I've got a laptop or a PC in front of me and a phone on the desk. How can I make that same scenario happen at home? So quite simply, there are options where you can physically take your phone home and plug it into your home-based router. That's the most traditional way of doing it. The issue there is, a bit like myself, the router downstairs in my house is an inconvenient end of the house, so I would have to trail a wire all the way from the router through the hall into my dining room. Not convenient. So what I do instead is I actually have a software version of my desk phone at the office. I have it as an app on my mobile, and I also have it as software on my laptop. So when I can choose whether to make or receive calls on either of those devices, and it will present out my work number, and any calls to my work number will come in on those devices as well. The benefit here is that if somebody who doesn't have a work business mobile, I can use that app to make and receive calls, but I'm not presenting out my mobile number. So the identity of my mobile number is protected. So it's great for staff members or employees who are not on a business mobile contract. And the real big beauty of doing this is if you've got a traditional based phone system, or if you've got a phone system that maybe doesn't support this, there are packages like this that can be overlaid onto your existing phone system. If you're not ready to go ahead with an upgrade for whatever reason, this can be overlaid temporarily onto any telephone system. So this is very much something that is available for everybody. Next. So conferencing collaboration. So I would say make use of the video conferencing software that's available in the marketplace. This can often be delivered through things like Zoom that we're using now. You've got Teams. There are a couple of other products out there. There are some that exist as bolt-ons to telephone systems. So you'll find that a lot of this software now is free of charge. If you are using one that you've been using for a while and are paying for it, approach that provider and see if you can revert back to a free trial. It may be that you take up some, if you're already using Zoom, it may be that you want to trial something else, but essentially there's a lot of it out there. It's all very good, and it just makes easier ways of handling meetings and keeping in touch with clients, prospects, suppliers, etc. This is at the moment the new way that we do meetings, and I myself personally, I've gone from somebody who spends a lot of time in the car, on the road, to being confined to my dining room table, which is certainly a different way of working for me. But you know, with software like this, it just makes it much easier.
I think just from today's meeting, there's quite a few people who are logged in on the mobiles.
Yeah.
So that's not everyone's on the laptop. So yeah, it's great advice.
Yeah.
So management information. So this is called a number of different things: call logging, call reporting, management information, and this was always something that was associated with busy call centres or contact centres. But what we've certainly found is that a lot of our customers have now moved from having staff in plain view in the office. Everybody can see what's going on. We can see reception. We can see customer service teams. We can see anybody who's answering the phone. And we've gone to having those same staff just working remotely. They're not physically visible anymore. So how can you, as a business owner, ensure or ensure that calls are being answered? Most importantly, calls are not being missed. Ensure that everybody's kind of pulling their weight in comparison with everybody else. So management information like this can be switched on temporarily for you to just ensure that people are continuing to answer calls, continuing to make calls. And there's an awful lot that this software can do, but we're finding that a lot of our customers are really just using it for the real basics, because as business owners, as company owners, if those calls are being missed, not being answered, if calls aren't being made, it's your firm, it's your brand, it's the potential, continued revenue and profits for your business that are being affected. So this is something that we can activate, we can switch on. I'll mention something about a trial later with this software, and then it can be turned off once everybody does return back to the office. It can be a temporary item. And sorry, go on, John.
Just a quick one. So me and Jay, we do a lot of commercial work, so we've got a lot of clients. And what we're finding is that on a lot of the clients that we're ringing up, just to see how they're getting on, if we ring the main phone lines, a lot of them just have a voicemail saying, "We're really sorry, but due to coronavirus, and we're not taking calls." I mean, that's probably the worst thing you can do, isn't it?
I suppose it depends on the sector. We work with a lot of law firms and those that specialise heavily in conveyancing have done a similar thing, because they've been inundated with calls. They've probably furloughed a lot of staff themselves. They're trying to direct inquiries through other means like email. So I think if you've got another way in, that's okay. If you've got firms that are not taking calls, it's a big decision to do that. But certainly, I mean, it really depends on you and your business. We would try and say, always ensure that calls can get through to somebody. Even if there's a wait time, just provide a routine. But it's entirely up to you and your business, I would say.
Victor, Graham's just asked a quick question. If setting up a startup based on a remote working basis initially with a few colleagues at different locations, do you have any particular recommendations or advice for comms approach infrastructure?
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of this, and we've been working with a lot of tenders at the moment for exactly that kind of infrastructure. So where people are wanting to set up with a small number of users based at home, and just get them up and working really quickly. And so we've done things like this and turned them around in a couple of days. So we've got software. I'd be delighted to speak offline about that.
Okay, so brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much, Victor. Cheers.
Yep. And the other item on here, something that we've been asked about a lot, is the recording of calls. So we're finding that there are a lot of businesses that, because we've not got supervisors who are on hand to be able to assist and help people whilst they're on calls. We've got firms that are looking to switch call recording on just as a means for a supervisor to just go back and continue to check the quality of calls, or for users who are now super busy because they're working in a sector that warrants that. They can actually go back and just check their own calls. So again, very much a switch on, switch off service, something that can be done and can be turned off super quick as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
So mobile phones now. this is something that's gotten extremely busy for a variety of reasons. So typically in a business, in a company, you'll find that there may already be a business mobile plan in place, but that mobile plan might only be there for a small number of staff in the workplace, so that you can give your workforce the ability to make use of their own mobile devices. And I would support that with a personal mobile device policy. So I'll cover that off in a second, but the other alternative is that you can just add additional connections in on 30-day contracts as part of your current plan. So you shouldn't need to take out a new connection on a 2-year contract. You should be able to do that on a 30-day plan. But what you'll find is that the adaptability from staff of using their own mobile device, because quite often staff will tend to have quite a good mobile phone themselves, so they'll be happy to use it. But again, we just need to support that with a personal mobile policy. So just next slide, John, please. What we would suggest is it's really important to be mindful of the security around using mobiles or even tablets for work. So the big issue and risk around using tablets and mobiles for work in general is that those tablets and mobiles are carrying business data, client information on locally on those devices, and especially if you're using apps for back office systems like CRM systems, whether there's bespoke or not, Dynamics, Sage, Act, any of them. If you're accessing that data via an app on a device, that's a potential risk if that device becomes lost or stolen, that data could be accessed, and ultimately there are huge fines for data breach or data in there. So what can you do to add another layer of protection to stop that from happening? So we talk around mobile device management, MDM, and this is software that sits behind the scenes on mobile and tablet devices. It does a variety of different things. It allows an administrator to manage the estate of devices, but it also allows them to do things like they can remotely locate, lock, or even wipe a device in the event of loss or theft instantly. It can restrict or manage which public Wi-Fi networks devices are allowed to log on to. Logging onto spoof Wi-Fi networks is one of the biggest ways in which hackers can obtain access to your device. And it can manage and restrict the apps that can be downloaded onto devices. So again, downloading dodgy applications is another way that people can gain access. Now, this all sounds great in a business mobile perspective, because a business mobile is a work tool. You as a company owner can decide to put that software on those devices because they're your devices. But what do we do if we're asking people to use their own devices for work? How do we get around that? Because instantly people are going to wonder why you're wanting to put software on their device if it's their device. So just next slide, John, please.
Just Victor, sorry, just before we jump on to the next slide, I had a question. Yeah. You're talking there about if people using works devices, but actually, so you've read my mind with the next slide. I was going to say, if you're using your own device and you're sharing, there's a risk of sharing your information, but it looks like you're ahead of me on this. I am. No flies on you.
Yeah. So this software works incredibly well in a bring your own device world as well. So bring your own device, BYOD. How do we provide the same level of security and protection on employees who are using their own personal devices? So again, the way this works, and if you can visualize this, it helps, is the software can actually create a specific box or container on your device, and in that box we drop in the applications that you're using for work, so email, a secure web browser, if you've got any applications for your CRM or back office systems, and that box, that container, becomes the item that's protected and secure on your personal mobile. The other side of the device, you can do whatever you want on. You can download anything you like, games, movies, photos, anything you like, the software won't look at that side of the device. It's only going to look at the apps that you have in that secure container. And just to, sorry, Jason. Yep.
No, so that's a breath of fresh air. That's a relief from that perspective. Martin's just asked a great question.
Yep.
MDM looks neat,
Yep.
but can you remotely load apps on a group basis to your team? Can you broadcast them out or push them out?
Yeah, it's a great question actually, because what we're finding now as well is that we've sent all our staff home. They've all got mobile devices, and if we might have already been in the process of upgrading back office systems, and we want to get those apps on those devices. And we know that, if I can put this politely, not everybody's as good on a mobile phone as other people. And so a fantastic side feature of this software is that an administrator can actually push app downloads out to all devices. So basically, me as a user would pick my phone up and see a business app start to download on my device. It's already pre-set up, so it means everybody can be online with an app within minutes, as opposed to having to rely on each user by user, logging into Play Store or iOS, finding the software, downloading it, putting the credentials in. An administrator can do this as a bulk download for everybody using this software.
Thank you.
Really handy. Yes, and then so with this bring your own device software, in the event of even the device itself, a personal device, becoming lost or stolen, the software will actually do what we call a selective wipe, and it will only wipe the data that's in those business operated apps. So it's next slide, John. And so this is you'll recognise a number of these streaming services on the right, and there's probably a lot more, but I picked a few out. A very real problem that a lot of us are experiencing at the moment is we're battling for bandwidth and speed at home. We might have a number of kids in the house that are all online. They're online gaming, they're streaming movies from Netflix. You've got many other people that are using that bandwidth up, and meanwhile business owners or employees are struggling to get onto things like video conferences to do client meetings to go about their daily jobs. So how do we manage this bandwidth? How do we operate when there's a real premium associated with time online? So one of the things that we're doing an awful lot of is, the idea of installing a second broadband connection sounds great, but the feasibility is that Openreach are already experiencing a lot of delays at the moment. You could be waiting 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks for somebody to come and install a second broadband connection. That broadband connection is going to be subject to a minimum of a 12-month contract. So it is an option, but it's not quick and it's not temporary, okay? One of the things that we can do that is available to you, and we've been doing this an awful lot for our clients, is you can actually, provided you get a good mobile data signal at home on any of the major networks, we can supply a mobile data SIM in a small device that will give you broadband connectivity over the mobile network that's just for you and your usage. Now, if you're in a 4G area, if you're in a 5G area, it's not uncommon for speeds to be quicker than what you're experiencing on your regular wired broadband connection at home. That's quite possible for that to happen. The SIMs like this can be set up on a monthly 30-day contract. So if you're planning on just providing yourself a kind of a second broadband connection for a short period of time, this is perfect. Cost-wise, you probably won't be paying any more than what you pay for your current broadband connection. There's no premiums associated with it being a monthly contract. And in terms of usage, most people's home broadbands are 500 gig and upwards. We can certainly provide from some of the networks unlimited usage on mobile data SIMs now. So you're not going to be penalised if you go over your usage with heavy charges. Sorry, John, did you have a question? John, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Just from personal experiences, all my family is using, they're all at home all day. So I've been fighting for broadband, and I'm actually using one of your dongles.
Yep.
So it's brilliant. So they can do whatever they want, and I'm in it uninterrupted.
Yeah.
So I've really found it helpful.
Yeah, and I would say, just keep, if you're using a dongle like that, just keep access restricted to yourself. Don't, just have that as a work or business broadband that only you can use.
But I think there was an option at the time. I could have either got a Wi-Fi dongle or one dedicated that as a USB just plugs into the laptop. So that's what I've got. So
yeah.
So now you tell me why you got such rapid speed. It reveals it in front of everyone. He's been showboating while I've been crunching my way through. Right, Victor, we need an answer.
Yeah. So just on that one. Lastly, there's a couple of different devices that you can buy, and one of the devices. So if you live in somewhere where it's yourself and your partner, maybe you're both working from home, and it's the kids who are using up all the bandwidth, you can actually purchase a dongle that allows multiple people to log on to it. So it could be yourself and your partner using that for your work life, and then the kids are free to use the residential broadband that you've got for all their kind of activities on there. So I hope you found that element of what I've gone through useful. There's an awful lot we've crammed into a kind of a short period of time, but lastly, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're able to offer yourselves as delegates on this webinar today. So we can provide a free trial of the home worker or remote worker cloud-based telephony software that I mentioned can be overlaid. So just to let you have a look at it, let you use it, and see if it's something you feel that might help you in your business. We can offer a free trial of the call reporting and management software. We've written a white paper, which is a document that talks, it's an informative document, talks around measures that you can take for you and your firm to be aware and be mindful of security and security threats on telephony and mobile devices. So there's a whole bunch of practical tips and advice in there, which I'd be more than happy to send across if anybody wants to request that from me. And I suppose the last thing really is our approach with our current clients and new prospective clients is that we'll quite often undertake a business communications audit. So we'll get an understanding from you of what's going on in your business, what you currently have in place, and we can go away, do some homework, make some recommendations, and produce back for you a report document that'll document down exactly what you've currently got in place, what we would recommend as potential benefits in deploying something new. And it's something that you can use to either take the information away and speak to your existing suppliers, or if you want to take things further with us, that'd be fantastic as well. So John, did you have a question then?
Yeah, I mean, I know that you've been doing these communication audits for quite a while, but the other things that you've talked about during your presentation, like furloughing your phones, none of that's ever been included. So if you do an audit, are you going to go through all of that as well and give advice on the other savings that they couldn't be making?
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the things that we get involved with as well is with your authority, we can speak to your suppliers on your behalf. If you don't feel comfortable with that, we can structure the things that you would need to ask your suppliers to trigger some of these savings and furlough and freezes of services. So we can structure exactly what to go back to them with, and you can send directly to them. So more than happy to do that as well, and that would be included with the business communications audit. Absolutely.
Brilliant.
That's brilliant. I've had somebody's private messaged me who's in the audience here as well, so I need to take that offline with you, Victor, also. Yep. If there's any other questions that anybody's got, can we unmic now and just open up, if that's okay? So unmute even on the... So if anybody's got any additional questions on the... Martin, I think I've seen a hand wave from Martin. Ev's just sent us a good link regarding posture too, which is important, particularly because we're working from home more. So that links in well with our health side, musculoskeletal, and all the other angles too. So by all means, drop on anything additionally into the group chat. But for questions, Martin, you had a question, didn't you? I can't see you now.
No, I'm just on the way out, 9:15. Thanks very much, guys. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Keep smiling, Martin. Cheers.
Appreciate that.
Can I just clarify that question about the VoIP and broadband I was asking earlier, Victor?
Yeah, of course.
So, in essence, I very cleverly moved my business back to home just before Christmas. I don't know whether it was, my husband thinks I'm a witch because obviously I saw all this coming. But all my staff have been remote working since well before Christmas, so that's great. Various reasons for that, but I won't go into. But so I moved my VoIP at home, and that works brilliantly. But then I started thinking from today, you know, I'm paying a fortune. In fact, it's not BT, it's Sky that I'm on for my broadband, and obviously my home phone, which we rarely use. We've got it sort of so that we don't take sales calls. But we would like the facility of having a fixed line, but I wonder whether that would be worth adding it to the VoIP business package I have. I didn't know I could even do that.
Yeah, so without understanding the exact VoIP deployment, they can be done in different ways, but absolutely you can simply activate a I wouldn't recommend a dedicated physical line.
No,
what I would say is we can look at just activating a dedicated VoIP connection for you for business that can sit separately but on your broadband connection, and then that can just simply work as a dedicated item for you.
Yeah, I moved to VoIP partly because I had an office. I'm based in Lytham St Anne's in Lancashire, but I moved from an office in Lytham and I switched exchange, would you believe, in a 4-mile radius there was a different exchange, so it was a ball ache to keep my business line. So that pushed me into VoIP. So I've been on VoIP for about, I don't know, 8 years. Kind of when it was initiated. So, but I'm probably not using its full capacity, and I had no awareness until you said about that. So that's great stuff for me.
Yeah, and certainly, you know, if you are on VoIP, it'll likely be that a lot of those services are probably available to you now. It's just that awareness of nobody's maybe told you that you can do these types of things, but certainly worth looking into with your suppliers to see what can I do more.
I've also got some clients I'm thinking of for some of the slides are you sharing the slide pack at the end? Is that possible? Or
I believe we are. Is that right, Jason?
Well, if you're happy to, my question to you, Victor, is if you're happy to.
Absolutely.
So, what we often do after these sessions is we send a little questionnaire and we send a link to, we have a Cube Thinking YouTube channel. So it makes a lot of sense that we drop the video recordings a couple of days afterwards, because John's like Steven Spielberg, he likes to edit them first of all. And whenever Victor will have said next slide, John will have been going, because he has to edit them out, because he's a bit of a perfectionist like that. Well, they drop in a few days, that'll drop onto the Cube YouTube channel alongside us. In fact, Rob Mannock, who's on here, our bearded friend here from Certain Wines, he's done a video which has had numerous hits, a bit of a rock star on here. So we will be offering those out. And if you'd like us to share slides too, that's fine, Victor. As long as you're happy with us to share your slides, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of kind of overview headlines of the things you can do. There's detail behind it which might differ dependent on what you've currently got in place and who your suppliers are, but more than happy to have those extended conversations and just help where we can, really.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thank you. Any more questions? Any more? Gary, you're a man who spends a lot of time in contact centres.
Yeah, I was just trying to find the mute button. No, so I think that's really informative. That I think the really interesting part, and this is where kind of contact center alarm bells ring if it's not there, is that whole cyber risk and that mobile device management. So I think that's a really really good point to labour on, not only for contact centers but for smaller SMEs as well that have data risks and security challenges. So good to kind of see all that stuff. And I think for me, kind of looking at the ISDN VoIP kind of interaction, that's interesting, that to kind of say, are many people still on ISDN, given what's coming down the line. So it's amazing to see there are still some people in that world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you know, if I had to guess, I would potentially say that there's probably still maybe 30% of the UK business market are probably still on ISDN. Maybe 35, I would guess.
I do wonder how that's impacted them over the last eight to 9 weeks, because surely that's crippled some people's businesses.
So I can talk around one example. We have quite a large law firm that we've been trying to get upgraded from ISDN. The project to do so was cost neutral. There were a whole bunch of benefits we were going to do with it, but certain business sectors take longer to manage these types of projects. They didn't manage to do it. COVID-19 hit, and so what we've ended up having to do for them is over the telephony software that I mentioned before about overlaying onto an existing phone system. We've had to do that and they've got about 200 users, so we had to set that up for them. But we managed to do it all within a week. So
how does that work? Does that then feed into the ISDN network, but then push it all out into the cloud, or?
Yeah, so essentially what they've had to do from a technical perspective is they've had to forward all their calls from each individual's phone in the office to what we call like a ghost DDI number in the cloud.
Yeah.
So anybody ringing their extension or DDI number will come through to the software on their PC, laptop, or mobile, and then with cloud or VoIP services, as you may or may not know, you can present out any number that you as a business own. And so what we do is we allocate every user to present out their DDI number on their pre-existing phone system. So when they make and receive calls, they're still presenting out their regular number, even though they're technically using a completely different, separate piece of software. And so we've activated that for them for this period. So they're
that some sort of like masked CLI or something then, or is that?
So yeah. So what happens is on an inbound call comes into their phone system in the office. The phone system in the office diverts that call to their software. Yeah, whoever's dialing in knows no different. And then if that person then dials out, they're just simply using the cloud to make a phone call out, but presenting their office DDI number.
Got it. And does that, as an interaction, does that cause any delays in speed of answer or anything like that, or is it fairly seamless?
There will be a tiny delay that you probably wouldn't notice, just because there's an extra leg on, and that's only on inbound, because the call's coming into the phone system in the office and then going back out to the cloud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Good presentation, I thought.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gary. Thanks again for joining us. Brilliant stuff. It's just been fantastic just to have people joining us, and I hope you found the presentation helpful. I've certainly learned plenty. Victor, thank you as well. I hope if you've not had your breakfast, you've certainly worked for it now. Crikey. And anybody else, any final questions before we call it a close?
What's the next one coming up, Jason? What's the next topic?
Well, you're in for a treat. So the next one, which we've got next Wednesday, is on digital strategies. So this is with, and we've sort of kept this under wraps actually. I was just scribbling then. So we're going to launch the Eventbrite on that about lunchtime. So we've got a 1 week wonder to lead up to this. But the gentleman who's going to be speaking with us, a few people may have heard of him. He's called Alex Comyn. Alex headed up the digital strategies for Toyota and for Audi, amongst other places. Rob, he's a customer of yours as well, and he won't mind me disclosing that. I'm not breaching any GDPR pieces there.
Find out what he drinks.
So he's seen you on the video too, but he's going to be talking about digital strategies and why you need one, and it may not be what you think it is too. So he's going to be drawing on his experiences from, like I said, working from Audi and Toyota, but equally looking at that as an applicable to, even if you're a cottage industry SME, the principles are the same, and looking at the raw shift into digital, but the passion for doing that, and really what's the reason for why, what's the compelling vision, the why, doing what you're doing in a business and why the digital approach needs to be a holistic solution. So think what the solution is first and the digital elements from that. Don't do, as a lot of people do, is be driven by, I need a shiny new website. That's not strategy, that's a shiny new website. And that might actually be taking you away from your strategy. So your strategy should be looking at your social media, it should be looking at not only your web, it should be looking at the way that you contact with people, and often straying into the digital too, so your physical offering complementing that. So you could have a physical offering which links into a web experience, so the app recognises when you go into a shop, for example. It doesn't have to be mega bucks, it's more about the innovative usage of a strategy there. So it will be rock and roll, it will be an incredible step. So that's next week, that's next Wednesday morning. So we'll give you forward warning, and I'll send you the link. When I send the survey link out, we'll send the link to this one too, if that's okay.
Brilliant.
Guys.
Brilliant. So John, have I missed anything?
I think you were very succinct there. Brilliant. So yeah, thanks very much.
Succinct means.
Yeah.
I'm only joking. So thank you everybody for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Keep the link, and let's keep playing to win.